Hi, I'm Abigail White, and I'm here with Guilford author Robert Kennard. And tonight we're going to talk about his two novels. What is it, 2 of 3 in the Saga of Kee?
Two, and we're working on number 3.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's begin with...
Okay, the Saga of Kee,
Yeah.
the most powerful dragon of all time, and the two princes' desperate quest to find him is a great read for young adults and all who love the power of dragons. We decided, we meaning mostly me and the characters, Ragnar is from a small country in Scandinavia, but he uses magic power to go to the realm of the dragons. There he abducts our hero Kee and his 5 sisters as hatchlings. As the dragons grow, they are forced to do the evil bidding of the sorcerer. However, Kee discovers a time that he can escape when the sorcerer goes in to receive his rejuvenation in a cave. At this time, Kee escapes. He flies to the good sorcerer Gal's realm and goes into a glacier, which is the only place he is safe from Ragnar's turquoise pendant, which can destroy his 6 hearts. You might ask, how do I know that a dragon has 6 hearts? Well, Stephen King's dragons have 6 hearts, and who can argue with Stephen King, right? The adventure continues, and of course Freya and her sister Jasmine, sister of the sword Jasmine, are searching for the dragon to save their kingdoms. How can they save their kingdoms? Freya goes to the glacier where the dragon is buried. Her tears stream from her eyes when she feels she has failed. But lo and behold, her tears fall through the breathing hole of the black dragon, and it's the sign he's been waiting for over 100 years. The dragon claws his way to the surface. The princess is frightened to death with her boyfriend, and lo and behold, the great dragon emerges. Somehow, she finds that she can communicate with the dragon with her thoughts, and he can communicate with her. Well, the dragon is starving, so she climbs on her horse like any good princess would. She goes into the wood, slays a couple of wild pigs, and brings them back and feeds them to the dragon. At this point, the dragon accepts her, and she is able to ride the dragon for the first time. And the story continues and continues, and they have to face the evil sorcerer and his army of the Craig, who are out to destroy all the kingdoms and put them under the power of Ragnar. Well, the first story, of course, is in Scandinavia, and the sisters and the dragon, and on with different heroes, and we have battles, many battles. It's kind of difficult to get rid of this evil army. And her sister Jasmine is in a duel to the death with the general of the Craig. She does become victorious after a bloody, brutal battle. Now, eventually, they free the kingdom, and they destroy Ragnar's realm. Then he flies on one of his dragons that is left, and he goes to the land of it's England actually, and he changes his ways and becomes Merlin. You always want to know where Merlin came from? Well, he came from Scandinavia, of course. Should we go to the second story?
Yeah, well, why don't we first... What made you decide to write this kind of story? Is it something you've always been interested in, or...
Well, I've always liked dragon stories.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Iliad from my grandfather when I was just 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And all we had was lantern light. In southern Ohio, we had no electricity whatsoever. But here it was. It's dark. It's like the world is pitch black. And he has the lantern propped up, and he's reading the words. Now, I didn't really understand too much being 10 years old,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of liked the scene. I liked the fighting. I wasn't too much into the romance, but I did like the fighting scenes. And that's what really got me into this sort of thing. Then, of course, many years later, I was in the Navy, and I did quite a few writing there. In fact, I used to write love letters for my shipmates and charge them.
Yeah, okay. So how did you morph into this kind of fantasy, historical fantasy? What do you want to call it?
Well, I was taking a hike in Guilford
Mm-hmm.
in the winter, and it was cold. Boy, it was so cold, as Guilford can be.
Can get, sure.
Yeah. And this black Labrador come out of the woods. Steam is coming out of his mouth. I said, my God, he looks like a black dragon.
Mm-hmm.
I went home and wrote 3 chapters.
Wow.
And that's the beginning of all this. And it is a very, if you like fantasy, if you like dragons, if you like power, good and evil, what can I say? It's a wonderful book.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that myself. Now, then I had an inspiration. Well, since we freed Freya's kingdom, Freya, I took the Scandinavian name and then added a Y-A, added the A to it, to make it Freya, so it'd be free. Now we have to save Jasmine's kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Jasmine is in Nubia, and an evil person has that. And, oh, he's terrible. And we have to go, how are we going to get from Scandinavia all the way to Nubia?
Okay.
Not an easy task.
So whereabouts is Nubia?
Nubia is Sudan today.
Okay, Sudan.
It's next to Egypt. So at this time they can't go through Egypt. The Egyptian army is too strong. Actually, they've been conquered by Arabia at that time.
Mm.
By the way, all the stories take place around the year 900.
All right.
We have a lot of things in 900. We have Vikings. We have all sorts of pestilence. Everyone believed in dragons at that time. I still do. Now they have to get by the Arabian fleet. So they went to Constantinople before it was taken over by the Turks. And they convinced the Empress, Irene, to allow them passage. They've aligned themselves with a group of Vikings. They go through into the Mediterranean. They have to cross the Mediterranean, sea battles. Of course, our friend the dragon tilts it in their favor.
Mm-hmm.
Then they march through the desert since they can't go through Egypt. And they come around the far side, and there's many battles there. But eventually, they free the kingdom of Nubia and free all the people that were in slavery.
Hmm.
So Jasmine does become a prince. She becomes a queen herself.
All right.
And it's the 2 stories are just one continuous from the other. It's a trilogy. And of course our dragon is in all of them. Now, there is a scene where the dragon is shot out of the sky. Because no character in any of my books cannot be vulnerable. The dragon gets shot out of the sky with a poison arrow from a crossbow. I even describe how the giant crossbow is made, where they get the poison and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 children ride unicorns all the way from Scandinavia with the cure. The unicorns have to use their horn with this magic potion to make it work. So they insert the one of them inserts his horn into the wound of the unicorn. I think that's pretty clever.
So you use the unicorn horn and you put it into the dragon's wound.
Right, with the potion.
Right. So tell me something. Did you have to map out all the different twists and turns, or did that come out organically? Did you write it as it came along?
Most of it I wrote as I came along.
Really?
Now, I write down the basic premise, and then I go over it and expand on it, rather than make a, oh, I don't know. But I feel that's the way to, for me, that's my personal way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone else wouldn't do it that way. They would outline everything and every little detail. But when you're writing fantasy, it has to flow. It has to, if it's not, if it's too, I don't know. But you have to have that flow, and your mind has to go out there into space and say, well, what would really happen? You create a problem, and then you create a solution.
Okay.
And you just continue with this. And I'm finding that this works pretty well for me. And my editor, she's very happy with what I've done.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about what book 3 is going to bring out?
Book 3, now that we've been in Europe, in North Europe, then we went to Africa. Well, we have to go to Asia. What was happening in Asia in the year 900? Well, we had warlords, mostly bad. We have Mongols. And we have flightless dragons. The Chinese dragons don't fly. The Asian dragons. So I decided to have Kee, our hero, is going to help this young Mongol save his mother and sisters from the evil warlord. And they've been captured, and they're in, they're not doing very well. They've been taken captive, and these dragons, well, they're fed Mongols. It's pretty rough. It's pretty rough. But the reason they do that, they don't know any better, and the evil warlord controls them with this horn that he has, and it lets out a shrill noise that only they can hear, but it drives them crazy if they don't obey everything he has them do. So he is one evil son of a gun. He actually, just like Ragnar in the first book, he takes the eggs, because originally he was nothing more than a thief. He takes the eggs out of a clutch from a female dragon, and then he raises them to do his evil purposes. Now, we have developed, actually there is 2 ongoing conflicts going on, which is something I like to do to keep it more interesting. We have trouble back in Nubia, because in Arabia, in Saudi Arabia, the kingdom has been deposed by an evil group similar to the radical terrorists that we have today. And they are about to invade Nubia itself, because they want to spread their form of religion throughout the world.
So is Kee going to go back to Nubia in book 3?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, okay.
Yeah, it takes a long time. It's an 8,000-mile journey. But he has to go back. And I think this time Jasmine gets to ride him, because it's going to be in Nubia.
And she's queen now.
She's going to be a queen.
She's going to be a queen.
She will be a queen in the third book.
Okay.
In book 3. She hasn't made it yet. We have some love stories. Got to have some love stories in there, right?
Yeah, you mentioned before we began that even Kee may have a romance.
We're working on this one. Yes, this may very well happen. The female flightless dragons, he might convince them to be good dragons, and we may have future dragons. He will be attracted to them. Even though he's much larger than they are, but they'll work it out.
They'll work it out.
There is a love story in the second book. Jasmine has to make up her mind who she likes, and this Nubian boy who had been a slave and escaped, eventually he wins her heart, and he becomes a prince himself. So I think there's many good things in these 2 books already. The Vikings, in fact, one of the a young Viking, he has a crush on Jasmine, but she makes her choice, and she picks the boy who had been the slave. She felt he was the bravest man she'd ever met. And her father, who is now the king of Nubia, her father was a general in the first book. But when he went back, he became the king, as his father had been the king once. Once they drive the evil people out, the evil tyrant and his people out, he becomes the master. And he believes in freedom of religion, all religions. He's a very noble king. Of course, we got to protect him from this evil bunch that's crossing the desert. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself.
You sound like you live in there. I mean, it's like
Oh,
you really
you do.
get into it.
You do. You get into it. Your mind goes into it. A lot of people that have read this, they just rave about it, and I'm very proud of that. There is a minority that your chapters are too short or your book's too short. I don't think they even read it. They never got into it.
Well, let's let the readers know a little bit more about you.
Okay.
You talk about your background, your hat.
Yes. You see my Navy hat.
Yes.
I've had quite an adventure in the U.S. Navy. 1960, I joined the Navy. I came home to my parents. They said, "Did you find a job yet?" I said, "Yes, I joined the Navy." I'm in Ohio. I didn't know. I never saw the ocean. And I was seasick the first 3 days on a destroyer.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear. They tied a bucket around my neck, my friends. Yeah, right? Oh, it was terrible. So, probably the scariest time was when I was washed overboard. And I wrote a story about that.
Yes.
Shark.
You were doing what when you got washed overboard?
I was dumping the garbage over the stern of the ship. I dumped the garbage over the stern of the ship. And this was during the height of the Cuban crisis. Everything was very scary then.
How far away from Cuba were you?
At that point, I could see Cuba.
You could see it. Okay.
Okay.
So it's like if you were in water, you could see land.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, from the ship I saw it, but the ship goes into a sharp turn. I'm knocked overboard because the wave hit me. They thought they picked up a Russian submarine. Turned out they didn't. I got washed overboard. They kept going. They didn't stop for me. I was a casualty. I just let them go, right? So, and I didn't have a life jacket on.
Well, somebody got you.
Well, almost the sharks. So I took off my pants and tied a knot into each leg. That's why sailors have bell bottoms. Threw it over my head and I had a life preserver. And I'm bobbing up and down. And there was this garbage can bobbing up and down beside me. And I got to thinking, oh my God, this is going to bring sharks. So I tilted the thing to the side. It went down and a chicken come up to the surface. I said, oh my God, now I know sharks are going to come. But I put my head between the legs and I passed out. See, you have the heat in the Caribbean, and then you have a groundswell coming up, cold water. And first I saw these little fish swimming around me, and all of a sudden, when I woke up again, they were gone. And I saw two large hammerhead sharks heading toward me. And they passed me. First they passed me. And one of them opened his mouth. I could see his teeth. I thought, oh boy. And then one disappeared, and the other one was coming at me. I thought, oh no. Meanwhile, the smelly chicken's bobbing up and down beside me. Well, the sharks, one passed me. The one from behind hit my leg, and I was bleeding. I thought, that's it. It's all done. So I closed my eyes, and I was afraid they were going to split me in half like a wishbone. But they didn't. They were after the chicken.
God, that was lucky.
I closed my eyes when I opened them again. The chicken was gone, so they were there, and the ship was coming back for me. They dragged me on board like a wet rat.
Yeah.
And told me as soon as I got out of sick bay, I was in trouble because I wasn't wearing my life jacket. Well, I recovered pretty rapidly from that, and then I had to do extra duty and things.
Yeah.
We went from Cuba, it was well over 100 degrees, Boom, we head to the North Atlantic. It was so cold. It was so cold, Abby. My eyes froze shut. I cried and my eyes froze shut. And I was chipping chunks of ice off the bow of the ship so that it wouldn't capsize. And then I'd rotate around. Then I got to hold the rope. They had me tied to a rope to somebody else who was chipping the ice. That was brutal.
It's awful.
It was awful. So I've had some pretty hairy experiences. My Navy career was a real Navy career. I do remember being in Cuba. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Given a shake to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Since I was a gunner's mate,
Yeah.
I had to go into where the ammunition was stored, underneath the gun. They wanted me to send up a shell. I sent up a star shell,
Mm-hmm.
and they fired it. I could hear the gun go off. It shook. And all my helpers were cooks. They didn't know anything about what was going on. Oh, they'd never been there. They're all, what do we do next? Some of them couldn't hardly speak English. We had Filipino cooks, right? I said, oh my God. But it went up, the gun went off, and we were anchored in Guantanamo Bay, and the reason for that, the Marines knew there were infiltrators coming in, and they wanted to see where they were, and the star shell illuminated it, so. So the infiltrators turned around and beat feet and got out of there. I did hear gunfire at one point, and up in the hills, the Russians and the Cubans got their signals crossed and they were shooting at each other, I later found out.
Oh, my goodness.
So I've had my share of experiences. And that's the main points. I've written several fishing stories
Mm-hmm.
because I love to fish. In fact, I think I'll be going this week. In Clinton, we have a new ship, the Lucky Lady. I advertised the Lucky Lady. I haven't tried it yet, but a friend of mine said it's very good, so we're going to see how that works out. And I have written several fishing articles, so this isn't the first thing I've written, but it's the first novels I've written. Now,
So where can people find out information about you or be able to buy the books?
well, the books, there is book signings coming up. There will be one in Guilford and one in Madison.
Okay.
Oh.
Other than that?
And it's on Amazon and Kindle and Nook. So, so it's quite a few places. Yeah.
And you also have a Facebook.
Yes, I have a Facebook and I have a Facebook page. So you can notify me. I think you will enjoy. Oh, of course you're going to enjoy these books. Not I think. Everyone likes dragon stories. I know I do. And anything else anyone would like to know about me, about my books, you can notify me on my Facebook,
Okay.
Robert Connard. I think my wife uses my Facebook more than I do. What are you going to do?
Well, it was a pleasure having you. And
Well, thank you
for
so
stopping
much.
by.
Yes, yes. Please come to one of my signings.
Okay.
Okay, I think you'll enjoy it. I know I will enjoy it. And I want to thank you very much, Abby, for inviting me over here.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody.